Hello, my name is Jeremy Alexander, and I'm in Music 309, the Friday class. I'm going to tell you some knowledge about Native Americans and their music. And so, for my research paper, I was sort of interested in the intersection between Native Americans and American music, popular music, and sort of if there's been a impact that the Native people had on our popular genres. And so my sort of, you know, assumption was that they've had a huge impact because, you know, they I've played in jazz bands and I've played in drum circles and I just, have heard blues songs and you have just heard, many things that sort of lead me to assume that native tribes have an influence on our music, but that is not the case. Um, I talked to Professor Rick Alviso, who is a music professor at CSUN, and that was the interview I did. And he told me that there is not sort of a broad influence that the native people have in their music on our culture, and it's kind of sad because it's a very tragic history between the native people and the Americans, and with Christopher Columbus and with even the Keystone Pipeline, modern developments, the native people keep on getting mistreated by mainstream culture. And so you know their culture is all about peace with the natural world and sort of sacred beliefs and just sort of nature above all. And they live in peace with the world. And so we kind of discount them as outsiders, or just people who sort of live on the fringes of society. And so basically, I was disappointed to hear that our culture has not sort of taken their musical traditions like drum circles or, chants, you know, the like. And their music really has, if you listen to it on YouTube, it has sort of like a natural sound. It almost sounds like it comes straight from the earth. And, I mean that as a compliment as a musician myself. It's very sort of, peaceful, and there's something about it that, we lack in modern, urban society. And so basically my research paper was looking into that. And so, seeing if Native people had an influence on us. And so I learned from Professor Alviso that's not the case, but they have had political and economic influence on American people. So it's not all lost. And then basically, I just want to talk about their music, the orientation of their music, real quickly. So I found it real interesting that when they play something, it's actually in unison. So for those of you who are not musicians, when you play something in unison, it's basically everybody. If you're singing a note, you sing the same note. If you're playing a note, you play the same note. And so they don't harmonize their music. And I thought that was real interesting. And I asked Professor Alviso if it had something to do with nature, and he said that was not the case because early African tribes actually had harmony in their music. And so it's more just sort of, he said it could do with community and sort of the idea of, you know the greater good rather than individual musicians. And so they don't harmonize. They use a lot of drums. They use rattles. They don't really use string instruments except for a flute. And of course, there's modern interpretations that probably have acoustic guitar or whatnot. But in the traditional sense, it's really led by the drums and the vocals. And there's this sort of really cool, loud pitched. It's a vocal technique that they use. It's very unique that they can do, and it's like a chant. And so they have some of that in their music.